Hi there, I am Claire Archwager. I'm a dating and relationships coach, and I created this video specifically to bring more color and texture and understanding to my coaching programs. I primarily work with people one to one. And so in this video, I'm talking specifically about the nature of my 6 month one to one programs and my 12-month one to one programs, just so we have the logistics and kind of details clear there. I start those programs twice a year. So I have a group of people that I take on in September, around mid September each year, and then another group that starts loosely 6 months later in March. I start the 6 month program then, and I start the 12-month program then. I take about 8 people in each of those 6 month cohorts, and then I take 4 people across the entire year in the 12-month program. So let's say in September in any given year, I have 3 people sign up for a 1 year program. Then starting that next March, I'll only take 1 person in that capacity, or it could be 2 and 2 or whatever it may be. Those are the start dates. We talked about that. Yeah, we can get into essentially the structure of it. I know the other thing that I was going to say is that even though I'm putting this video out there, if you find that you want more detail and you want to learn more about this, booking a discovery call is the best way to do that. So there are links all over. If you go to ithinkilikeyou.co/private coaching, private-coaching, then there'll be plenty of links, easy to navigate there in terms of booking a discovery call. And that's something I do with every single client before they start, because it's an opportunity for them to interview me and for me to interview them in a sense, to see if the way in which I work and the type of focus or client that I focus on is really the thing that meets their needs, and vice versa. I would say for anyone considering this work, I often say to people I'm speaking with, you should speak with multiple sources, because the number one indicator, and this is research based, and this is no matter what type of practitioner, whether it's a therapist or a coach or an energy healer or yoga teacher, the number one indicator of your evolution, success, growth in working with that person is your relationship with that person. So it doesn't matter if they have all the fancy bells and whistles or what they offer. You really want to ground into, like, how do you feel about that person? And what's your relationship like with them? So spend time getting to know them. So like I said, definitely book one of those calls if you watch this and you're like, ooh, I'm really intrigued, I want to learn more. And that's what I do anyway, for anyone that's interested in joining my container. So that gets into the language of a container. Most people that I work with are very familiar with the traditional therapy model, which is you meet for 50 minutes to an hour once a week, part ways, then come back the next week, do it again, do it again, do it again. Sometimes you meet every week, other times every other week. But what's different in the program that I've created, it's very much an ongoing dialogue and co-creation. I often joke that it's like there's an umbilical cord between myself and my clients, because it's in a constant or ongoing exchange of information, learning, reflection, evolution, interaction, and growth in that way, which is what makes then the integration ongoing. It's by no means me saying, I use therapy as the example just because it's something people are really familiar with, and because the way in which I work with clients is very much, so much happens outside of the sessions themselves. The coaching calls are just one element of the entire way that I work with you and support you. I find it helpful to contrast it with that, because people don't really realize, oh, it's like this kind of larger thing that I get. But there are different seasons of life, different seasons of support needed. So yeah, I start there because it's an easy way to clarify it. So whether you do the 6 month or the 12 month, which is really dependent upon the person, what they're looking to work on, achieve, the type of support that they're seeking. So that's something that I eke out with people in those one-to-one calls when we're first learning, like, what's this really about? Will this work for me? That kind of thing. The discovery calls, excuse me, not the one-to-one calls. So know that if you're questioning that will get figured out. And that's something that when we speak live, we can explore that together. So the thing I want to clarify is the 4 different elements, which I'm simultaneously looking at my website as I speak to you about all of this. which is also what you can actually see on the website. If you go to ithinkilikeyou.co, well, you'll know it because that's where this video is going to be linked. But these 4 different elements that I weave together in this experience, whether it be 6 months or 12 months, to create the type of change and evolution and growth that you're seeking. So the 4 elements are live coaching calls, written work, content, and interaction in between the sessions, which is text and voice note. So I do a lot of voice notes, which is essentially another form of being coached in between the sessions. So I'm going to talk about what each of those things are and look like, and then I'm going to talk about why I put them all together and how they weave together to create and kind of like secure the type of change that I'm ultimately working to create in my clients. So coaching calls are 60 to 75 minutes in length, and we do them every other week. But you can add in, like, occasionally it'll be necessary to do like a 15-minute call there, a 20-minute call there, a 30-minute call there, an entire 45-minute call or whatever it may be based on what you're going through. So I have found that those calls every other week, because we're doing so much work and there's so much work that you're getting in between. And when I say so much work, I don't mean like hours and hours of homework. We're just digging up a lot. A lot gets dug up in a 60 to 75-minute conversation, and then we want to be able to work with all of that. And having a conversation about it is not just not the only way, but it's not always the best way. I'm going to explain what I mean by that. So that is the structure, whether you're in the 6-month or the 12-month, we go every other week. So let's walk through like a sample week, if you will, a module of working with me. So let's say we have our coaching call on a Tuesday, and prior to that, you had journaling work that I personally assigned. And when I say journaling work, this is not some like list of questions that I Googled or things that I give to every single person. It is entirely customized. And the reason that I do that is because when I am doing a coaching call with someone, I am coaching them in that moment, but I'm also listening for like 17 other things that are like rocks I want to look under. Maybe it's a word they used to describe their brother. Maybe it's an interaction they had at work. Maybe it's a feeling they have about a girlfriend. Maybe it's a fear they have around the cost of their electric bill that month. They are so specific and also so random, but I pick up on them as sort of nuggets, clues into greater patterns and things going on that I want to be able to reflect back to my client. The thing is, like with anyone, if I were to ask them directly about it, or if I were to bring it up in that moment, I know that we won't get at it in the way that I want to. And really what I'm working to do there with all of the elements of the work that I do is get to that subconscious layer, get to that subconscious patterning, which drives 95% of our behavior in all of life, but most certainly in dating and relationships and love and in intimacy and attachment and on and on and on. So in that Tuesday session, let's say I'm coaching you through what we're working on that week, but then I'm simultaneously taking notes. I'm always clickety-clacking away. And then that gets translated into a series of journaling questions that you are assigned in between the previous session and the next session. The thing is, though, is that you're filling out those questions and they don't just sit there. I go in the in-between. I'm highlighting things. I'm adding on other questions. It's all an experience that I have created to really pull out more of what's underneath. So when people say to me, I just feel like I'm behind. I don't know what I'm doing. Like dates never work. I'm just constantly having like surface conversations. People ghost all the time. I'm so anxious. What's going on here? I don't think it's ever going to work. Like I hate the apps. They make me feel like shit, and on and on and on. And so many other things outside of the realm of dating. There are always very clear and distinct reasons as to why we feel that way. But we're in a position where we can't see why we feel that way right now, why that's happening to us, what's really going on. In the same way that I have my own therapist and my own coach to reflect those things back to me. Because it's like we're looking at our life like this, and like they're back there being like, wait, there's a bigger thing going on up here. So the writing is a crucial element in that. So we have our coaching sessions, and then we have the writing. And these journals, it's an interactive Google Doc that you and I work back and forth in. And I've had clients that like 75 pages long. We just go on and on. There's like a conversation in the margins. It gets really juicy and clarifying. Then I take bits of that and I bring it to the next session. It's as if we're both like unknotting a really knotted necklace and building a new configuration, a new foundation. We're like taking down the house and rebuilding something here. So that is just such a beautiful practice. And the other thing too is that the act of writing is also very calming and soothing. So when clients are going through particularly stressful, painful, anxious periods, I actually had a client just the other week where we were supposed to speak that following week. So we would have had back-to-back sessions, but I was like, I actually think it would be better if we put you into a 2-week writing spell where every few days I'm giving you new questions, then I'm reacting, I'm asking more questions, versus having the live conversation, because we need to bring some of this down and smooth some of it out. Having a live conversation sometimes can just be like, oh, I am so upset and I can't handle anything, which there's definitely a time and a place for that. And there's also support for that in the program, which I'm going to get to next. So the writing is such a crucial element of the practice, and something when clients go through it, they're then able to do it for themselves. It's actually, I still use this practice on myself, and it's one of my most important processing and reflecting tools. So the third element is content. That could be a book, that could be a podcast, that could be an article, that could be a single Instagram post, it could be anything. And the reason why I integrate other content is that it's for a few different reasons. One is that as we're working to shift the subconscious, which is all of those neural networks and patterns and things that are creating basically the way that you experience life right now, the brain benefits from different exposure. So I may have a session or may have a conversation with a client in a session one week where we're talking about father wounds or mother wounds or codependency or enmeshment or anxious attachment style, or any even more specific. It doesn't have to be about all those jargony terms. It's going to be patterns in their last relationship, the nature of their breakup, the relationship they have with their sister, why they hate their job right now, and on and on and on, all this stuff. So I can tell each week that people are in a particular place in a particular moment, and they would benefit from hearing specific content to, again, reflect them back to themselves, reflect back the larger thing that they're feeling and what's going on right now and what's driving the ship. One way we do that is live conversation. Another way we do that is through written work. And another way we do that is from me saying, I'd like you to listen to this podcast this week. I'd like you to read this chapter of this book. I'd like you to read this article here. And then they are directed to reflect on that. So I'll either have people pull out things that resonated with them, or reflect back to me via a voice note. So this could be done via journaling or a voice note. But the reason that I have them do that is not just like topple on more work, but it's because I know if they are required to consider the content that way and then reflect it back to me, it will integrate better. I want to take a moment because I know I'm talking a lot about homework and work and writing and reading, and people can be like, wait, oh my God, how much time is this going to be? More is not more here. And I often work with people that are on some sort of like self-help hamster wheel where they're like constantly Googling like the next solution or the book or the thing, which perpetuates this idea that we are broken and that we ourselves don't have the information or the knowledge. When I talk about working to reflect you back to you, working to clarify your patterns and your tendencies and your subconscious wiring, it's to build a relationship with yourself, an understanding of yourself that fosters self-trust, so that you are the conduit, that you are the person that's guiding the ship. I'm not some expert or guru. I can be an expert in doing this work with people and being the conduit and the tool to reflect them back to themselves. But like, we're working to develop tools within yourself such that you're able to manage that on an ongoing basis. So all that said, I think it helps because I work with people that are so incredibly busy in terms of they have very demanding jobs. But it really looks like 1 to 2 hours max a week of work that you're doing. It can be more if you want. And I'm going to get into why that is in the fourth pillar. So we had our coaching calls, we had our written work, we have our content, which again is all bespoke and all customized. I have certain standard questions and procedures that I bring people through, but I am iterating every single week. And I love that process. I love going into someone's journal after they've just like filled out a series of questions and going in and pulling things out and digging deeper and seeing the threads and the connections and then assigning the podcast that's going to like blow their mind. Now I have my own content that I use, but again, because of the way in which I know I need to expose their brain to other facets than just me and my voice and myself, that's why I weave in those things and integrate it throughout the process. So let's get to the fourth piece, which is the most kind of new for people who have never done a coaching program of this kind, and that is the digital support in the in-between. But people can hear digital support and they're like, okay, cool, so I'm going to text you about something or I'm going to send you an email. And it's so much more than that. So back to that, let's say we had our Tuesday session, you've got your journaling questions, you've got your next content assignment, but a few days after, maybe we were having a conversation about your boss and how they're really nasty to you or they gaslight you in some capacity or you're really miserable at work and you have a dream that in relation to that, or you have some memory that kind of sparks, or you have an interaction with your boss that day in relation to what we were speaking about. And it makes you think about something else in the context of the conversation. And that's when you drop into your phone and you drop me a voice note and you're like, Clara, I just had this thing happen and in relation to our conversation this week, and this is coming up and I'm confused, or I had this thought, whatever it may be. Voice notes sometimes from clients are 2 minutes long, sometimes they're 5 minutes long. Generally, we try to keep them below 10 minutes just because we want these to be quick and interactive in terms of the way I'm able to get back to you. But either way, you get live coaching in that moment. So every day, Monday through Friday primarily, I am going through my phone on Monday afternoons. I delineate time for going through all of the interactions with clients via Boxer is the tool that we use. It's a very if you work on the coaching industry, everybody's on Boxer, but it's essentially it's like texting, it's like you could text me and leave me text or voice notes, but I put it all in there just to keep it housed in that way for clients. But I'm going through, I'm looking at screenshots of the books they've sent through what they've been reading and what resonated with them. I'm listening to voice notes about the date they just had. I'm listening to voice notes about the struggle they're having with their parent or their mom. I'm listening to voice notes about the dream they had in relation to the subject we talked about last week. And pretty much anything and everything under the sun that comes up, because as I mentioned, we start to touch all facets of the life. People come to me because they're struggling in the realm of dating and relationships, but then by way of looking at work, your professional life, by looking at your family, by looking at your friendships, by looking at your relationship with your body, where you live, we start to see how it's all connected. It's all connected, and that's all weaved together, not in some way where we're piling on more problems, but when you start to see it in this way, it gives you leverage and support. Like for myself, I know that when I'm facing a certain issue in my work or in my business, I can now look to other areas of my life and see the same theme cropping up. And that's incredibly empowering because it's usually one root behavior or one root cause that's causing a muck in all these other areas. And so it's incredibly empowering in that way. So that is the digital support. It is unlimited. It is on demand. It is how we integrate, right? Because it's not that we're having a conversation and the week later you say, okay, well, this happened and there's all this catch up. There's no catch up needed. We're in a constant conversation going back and forth. I have a client who she has her session next week, but she had a date that was really significant on Wednesday night. We caught up about that yesterday. We don't need to go into that next week. We're all going to integrate that, and then I can support her in other ways. I can tack on other journaling questions. I can tack on other content or whatever it may be, so that not every week is a catch-up. Clients walk away from sessions and they're like, holy shit, I didn't know that was there. I didn't know that pattern was there. I didn't see that this whole construction, this thing that was underneath the surface that had, inroads into every area of my life. So it's not this like, how was your week? Some of it is, and that's part of it. But we touch on it all. So I just want to make sure that I've covered everything here. There are more details on the website. As I said, like if this is something that you're considering, schedule a discovery call, because a discovery call is an opportunity for you to get to know me even further and for me to get to know you. And I take on a very specific type of client. I'm not the right fit for everyone, but the people I am the right fit for, like, we fly. We absolutely fly, and it is a delight. So again, the 4 elements that you can think of, like a braid or something that we're weaving together, that we're crafting across the 6 or 12 month period, are the live coaching calls, the written work, the content, and the digital support. Thank you so much for listening and watching. And as always, you can hop on to Instagram at ithinkilikeyou.co and shoot me a note there. I have my podcast that releases every Tuesday. That will also give you a taste for my work. Under the resources page on my website, I have tons of writing, things that give you more of a flavor for my work. I've actually had folks just read all that content and benefit tremendously from it. And then Clara at ithinkilikeyou.co. That's my email. You can also reach out there.